As the season starts to change, a lot of people get sick. And my two youngest, Emma and JJ, they started not to feel so well, so I thought it is time to make my elderberry syrup. I have been making this syrup now for the past 3 years, and we really like it. It tastes so good, and the benefits of it is just absolutely excellent. Every single time we're starting not to feel well, or are kind of on the sick side, or even when we're sick, this definitely cuts the sick time down in half and helps us to recover and feel better a lot quicker. So what I started to do here is I got 4 cups of water and I'm bringing it to a boil. I covered it so this way it can boil a lot quicker, and I am going to be using 1 cup of elderberries. I have the dried elderberries. You can also use fresh elderberries as well. And if you use fresh elderberries, then you'll want to use 2 cups of elderberries. I'm going to list all the ingredients down below in the description, so you can look at it, jot it down, and use it for future reference. I'm also going to be using some cinnamon sticks and also some clove. I didn't have any ginger on hand, but ginger is also really great to use. I really like using ginger. I have lime. You can use lime or lemon, and I just have lime, so that's what I'm going to be using. I also like to put fresh orange juice and orange from an orange. I don't have that, so I'm just going to use what I have on hand. And I want to encourage you, if you don't have all of this on hand, that you can use what you have as well. It turns out excellent and has a lot of properties of natural healing and helping to boost your immune system alone with just the elderberries itself, if that's all you have. The dried elderberries I got from Amazon, and I will go ahead and link those down in the description if you are interested in taking a look at those. So I bring the water to a boil. I have put the elderberries in, and I'm going to be putting in a cinnamon stick, and I end up actually putting 2 cinnamon sticks in, but at first I start off with 1. I'm also putting some clove in, and I just let that get to a boil, not to like a rolling boil. I want it to be more of a simmer, so once it starts to boil, I do turn it down so it can simmer, and I set the timer for 15 minutes. I do end up doing a total of 30 minutes, but I first want to do a 15-minute round, and I just let it simmer, and in between I give it a nice little stir here and there, and then I go ahead and I add in my lime juice. I put in a whole lime, and this one's a really juicy lime. If it wouldn't have been juicy, then I would have put in 2 limes, but I used the 2 halves that I had already in the refrigerator cut, and that's what I use. So I put them in, stir them, and you just want to stir here and there. It doesn't have to be a constant of stirring. You can just let it and set it as it simmers and just stir as you go. So elderberry has a lot of great properties. Like I said, it really does cut your sick time in half, and it really boosts your immune system and just helps you to feel better all the way around. We absolutely love it. The taste is just absolutely wonderful, and we really enjoy it. I do end up putting some cornstarch to thicken it up to be more of a syrup. I don't know if you have purchased it from the store before, but when you purchase it from the store, it's not all liquidy. It has a thicker syrup consistency to it, but when you just make it just like this, it'll be liquidy, and I don't want it to be liquidy. I have done it like this in the past, and trying to get it into a toddler's mouth or even into your own mouth, it's very easy to spill. And elderberry, as you know, berries, they stain, and you'll be seeing here in just a bit how I do get it kind of all over the place. And so it's just a perfect example that it's easy to get all over the place, and so it's good to make it a thicker syrup. I have cornstarch, that's what I use. I do end up using 3 heaping teaspoons. At first I do 2, and then I end up adding a 3rd later on. But I have also read that you can also use arrowroot. I have never used arrowroot before, but I have read that that's another way that you can thicken up your syrup, so you can do that as well. So I get my cornstarch ready and set it aside for after the 30 minutes has already been done and timed out, and then I will add it on in. So once it has already simmered 30 minutes, I wanted to try to avoid having to dump it. I usually always dump it into a strainer, and this way I catch all the berries at one time, but I was trying to avoid having any type of a mess. So I tried this time to just do it with a spoon, but it was taking a little bit too much time, and I was wanting to get this done because it was already getting later, and before it got dark, I wanted to take my kids for a walk. And not only that, the berries are so tiny, it was just way too much of a tedious job. So I went ahead and I dumped it on in a strainer, so this way it could strain out into a bowl. So after putting it into the strainer, I take my spoon and I push it on down because there still is a lot of juice still in the berries. So you can get a lot of delicious juice still out of it. So I just push it down to make sure I can get all the juice possible out of the berries and get all of those delicious and awesome nutrients and properties. So I'm definitely not a doctor or a nutritionist, but I do like to do things the healthiest way as possible. And I always want to do things with my family's health in mind. So this is something that we have been taking for years. I've been giving this to my children all along, and my mom had given it to me too as a child. So it's something that has worked out really great for our family and that we really enjoy. So luckily I was able to get the stain out of the towel. I was worried that it was going to stain it for forever, but luckily I didn't leave it on for very long. And with some cold water, it just helps to get the stain out. You don't want to do hot water because it'll make the fibers go tighter. You want them to be loose so it can come right out of the fabric. And I took a little bit of Dawn soap and I was able to work it out fairly quickly, and I'm thankful that it did come out. So now I'm going to be returning the juice back into the pot. It's still very warm, it's pretty hot still, and I'm going to return it to the stove so this way I can bring it back to a simmer. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in the cornstarch at this point now that the berries are out, so this way I'm able to bring it to a thicker syrup consistency. When you do pour in the cornstarch, you'll want to continuously stir. So this way there is no clumps and it just goes in nice and uniform. You do want to make sure that when you put it in a little bit of water, I use a small cup and I just have, I don't know, like less than 1/4 of a cup of water, room temperature water. And you do want to put filtered water for all of this. You don't want to use tap water. I mean, if that's all you have, then do what you have by all means. But filtered water is best. We use our drinking water, our reverse osmosis, and that's what we use. So you put the cornstarch in a little bit of water and stir, stir, stir until there's no more clumps. And then you place it into the liquid. So after I have stirred that, I take it off of the stove and I have placed it in front of my window, and I took my kids for a walk so this way it can cool. Once it does cool, you'll want to check it with your finger, and if it is not burning your finger, it's just warm, then you go ahead and you add in your honey. I use raw, organic, unfiltered honey, and that's what I use, and that's just the best that you can use. You don't want it to lose the properties of the honey, the raw unfiltered portion of the honey, because if you boil it, simmer it, then it loses its properties. But if you come back and you check it after it cools and it's to a nice comfortable touch that you can actually touch it, then you can go ahead and stir it and you don't lose those properties. So after I have stirred it in very well, I'm going to go ahead and place it in some mason jars, and it made out to almost like 1.5 mason jars, the smaller mason jars. I'll put the size in the description of how big this mason jar is, but it's the smaller one. There's the smaller ones, the larger ones, and I go ahead and fill that up. Now, while we're not feeling well, I give my kids a teaspoon, and I do it pretty much like every hour on the hour, or give or take. I get busy, so as often as I possibly can, for the first day and even the second. And for an adult, I take a tablespoon, and my husband takes a tablespoon as well. And this really helps out a lot. And I'm not a doctor, so by all means, you can't take medical advice just from somebody's word. Do your research and use your own knowledge and wisdom, and do the best that you can for your own family based off of what you have learned and based off of what you feel is best as a mom. Or dad, if you're a dad watching this as well. So it tastes absolutely excellent. It's just so good. The kids really like it and enjoy it, and it's just really great. And not only that, it is really good for our bodies. So I definitely highly recommend making this. We really enjoy it. I hope this video really helps you out. And here is a tablespoon for you as well. Thank you so much, and God bless. Take care.